a hard act after Jeff. I was going to get him to do something on my mobile phone to my 11-year-old twins who have told me I'm the worst mother in the world because they're the only ones in grade 6 that do not have a mobile phone, and they are victims, and there's something wrong with our family. So I will grab Jeff to do a message because you wouldn't argue with Jeff. Look, Jeff is right. Sport has come a long way in the last decade in considering how mental health is part of performance. By no means have we got it perfect, but we have come a long way. And to that point, in December of last year, we launched the National High Performance Sports Strategy of 2032 plus. Why 2032 plus? For those that don't know, in 32 in Brisbane, we have the Olympic and Paralympic Games in this country. And we believe that wellbeing will be core to the success of those games. So the entire high-performance sports system in this country, in December last year, got behind and developed one strategy for the next 10 plus years. And core to that strategy is the vision you see on this screen. We win well to inspire Australians. Our mission is simple. We're united in our pursuit to build an inclusive and sustainable sporting system. The win well. We are all about winning. We are in elite sport. But we believe that wellbeing is fundamental to sustainable high performance in this country. We absolutely recognise that in Brisbane in 2032, not every single athlete will win a medal. But we absolutely want every individual to leave our system believing that they are better off as a result of being part of our industry. So what is win well? Every sport in our country, Olympic, Paralympic and Commonwealth Games sport, on December the 15th, all our leaders pledged to winning well. And I want to draw your attention to that middle column there. We commit to the holistic development of our athletes and our staff, recognising wellbeing is the foundation of sustainable success. We commit to leading sport with integrity, where we are accountable for the culture we foster and the decisions we make. So how do we do that? How do we make wellbeing core to a high-performance environment? When I started off in elite sport over a decade ago, we started with thinking about the athlete or the player at the central part of that. And that absolutely is important. And I'll talk a bit about how you do that in a moment. Where we are now is absolutely the athlete is really important to the culture of wellbeing in high-performance sport, but so are the coaches, so are the administration, so are the CEOs. Why? Because wellbeing should be for all. Wellbeing should not be for a subpopulation of your culture, of your industry. So when I began, we spent a lot of time, and I began in AFL, we spent a lot of time developing individualised services for the player, where they could access it away from their training environment. That is absolutely an important service to have. And today, at the Australian Institute of Sport, we fund a national mental health referral network for all 36 sports we fund nationally. And that service is made up of psychologists, eating disorder specialists, psychiatrists and social workers away from the daily training environment that athletes, coaches, administrators, high-performance staff and performance support staff, biomechanists, nutritionists, etc., can access for free. That referral network is comprised of over 60 practitioners based all around the country and available to our athletes and our industry all around the world at any time of the day. It is access for a whole heap of different reasons. When we started, a majority was reactive. Things were pretty bad when they would access the service. What we're seeing now is a shift where they're proactively getting individualised support. So down that continuum, mental health up one end, where we want, flourishing, and mental illness down the other end, what we're seeing is that shift towards people getting the services and the skills earlier on, so their recovery back into the daily training environment is quicker. So individualised support is critical. One of the other really important elements of how you bring wellbeing into a high-performance culture is how do you think about the relationships and the support that's required within there? So what support should be required for those around the athlete? Parents, partners, etc. Because as we all know, that support system away from training is critical to the success when they're training and competing. So how do you develop all the mechanisms around that person? One of the other key things we've done in the last decade is implement and infiltrate the importance of mental health literacy. And in my time at the Australian Institute of Sport over the last 4 years, all the programs we fund engage in mental health literacy. That is not for them to diagnose themselves or others. That is so they understand how to have a conversation with a teammate and get that person into the support they need. How do you notice? What are the signs you should be looking for? And how do you have that really tough conversation with someone whilst you're at training or even away from training and say, mate, I do not think you're going okay. Do you think you should talk to someone? That education is provided to the athlete groups, the parents and partners, and all the staff in the system. Another thing we've done to develop and get early intervention into our system is every second year we do an audit of our entire industry, athletes and staff, around mental health prevalence. So we know the themes, not necessarily those that are accessing the services, but the themes that exist across the system. And that is done so that we can further explore programs and support for the future. They're just a couple of examples of things that we do. Thirdly, you heard Jeff talk about the importance of culture. I believe this has been the game changer for our system. How do you embed wellbeing, mental health into the culture of a high-performance program when we unashamedly are about winning gold medals? We do it through measuring it. Every funded sport in this country engages in a wellbeing health check. Athletes and staff partake in it, and it measures things such as diversity and inclusion, transition in and out of the program, and mental health. That information is collated internally from one of my teams, and each sport gets their data compared to all 35 other sports. They identified the other 35 sports, but their data, whether they're high, low, medium. And as you all know, if you're competitive about most things. So this has become competitive. No sport wants to be the sport that scores the lowest. We make sure that information is presented not just to the athlete group and those that partake in it, but also the boards. You've got to engage all layers of the industry to truly impact change. So the boards get the report. So therefore they're reporting up, down and through. Everyone needs a role in embedding wellbeing into the culture. And then finally, policies and procedures. It is critical. You can have a whole heap of education programs, a whole heap of services, and different measurement, but you also have to have policies and procedures to support that. People need to know where to go back to when things aren't going well. What can I rely on? What's the board signed off on? Etc. So we have policies in place around wellbeing management. How do you manage an individual who requires time away from their training environment? What is the policy that sport has agreed to so that when things get tough and selection or non-selection comes into play, we're all on the same page around what those policies are? People will need time away from the training environment. But what you want is something in place that you're not having that conversation when that situation's occurring. You're having that conversation every year, several times a year, in order to keep that knowledge going so that when the situation happens, and it absolutely will happen, high performance sport is not immune to mental health issues and illness. It absolutely will happen. Everyone understands the process we're going to follow. So we have mental health policies. We have critical incident management policies. So if there is an incident, a suicide, etc., what is the steps that are put in place for that broader community to ensure their safety? How do they come together? How do they support one another when an incident like that happens? We do the training every year, and we provide communication plans to support the sports to deliver upon that. So I think all 4 layers of that are important. You absolutely can start off doing one, and that individual servicing, somewhere for people to go, is typically the most important starting point. But I think for a truly embedded wellbeing in high performance culture, you need to look at all 4 layers. Just a couple of other examples of things we do in order to embed wellbeing into our high performance programs and culture. We fund all sports in the country, Olympic, Paralympic and Commonwealth Games sports, to have an embedded person into their high performance programs called a wellbeing and engagement manager. Those people must sit on the leadership team. They must have a seat at the high performance decision making table. They can't be 10 rungs down. They have to have a seat at the decision making table, and they have to have a seat at the decision making table equal to the head coach. Because if we're truly going to say wellbeing is important, they need to be able to talk. They need to be able to be involved and put opinions on the table before the decision is made regarding someone's wellbeing. They need to be part of the conversation. So those roles have been truly critical, and we've seen an evolution of those in the last 4 or so years. I've spoken about the mental health referral network, and I've spoken about the wellbeing health check. Probably my last point up there is the Be Heard support that we provide for the entire industry. And that is a system where people can confidentially call, regardless of whether you're an athlete, player, staff member, current or past, that you can call and get some advice about something that doesn't feel right for you. And talk that through with someone. It may not be a breach of integrity, but it does not feel right. And people need to know where to go to ask that and have that conversation to understand what the next steps are. Because as we know, mental health, mental illness, but integrity and conduct and professionalism is key to embedding wellbeing into a high performance culture. As I said at the start, we have come a long way in elite sport in this country in the last decade. We absolutely have a long way to go, but we have a commitment from all our leaders around the country to winning well, and it starts with leadership. If you can all commit to doing one activity, individual or greater for your organisation, you shift a culture, and that's absolutely what our system has done. So I really look forward to 2032 plus to see what this means for our performance of the athletes and the staff and the coaches that you will see on that big screen where we beat the British. Thank you.